Larry Bird just completely broke the internet. He made a huge statement about the whole Marina Mabrey and Caitlin Clark situation, and it got everyone talking. Bird is usually calm and straightforward, so when he decided to speak up, people knew it was serious. He wasn't just commenting on a basketball play either. He was talking about something deeper. What real competition and respect mean in women's basketball. Nobody expected him to get involved, but when he did, the entire basketball world stopped to listen. He basically said out loud what many people were already thinking. There's a big difference between playing tough basketball and playing dirty. It all started after that intense game where Mabrey, known for a fiery attitude, clashed with Clark. It wasn't just a typical heated moment. It was something that made even veteran players uncomfortable. Replays showed what many called a cheap shot. Everyone had an opinion, but when Bird, a true legend, weighed in, the whole conversation shifted. This wasn't some random commentator speaking. This was Larry Bird, a man who faced everything on the court without ever resorting to dirty play. He called Mabrey's move weak. He said that in his day, if you had an issue with someone, you faced them like a warrior, not when their back was turned. That statement hit like thunder. What's even crazier is that Mabrey doubled down, basically saying, damned if I do, damned if I don't. For Bird, that was the final straw. He responded, true champions take responsibility. They don't hide behind excuses. He even compared her behavior to players who can't compete at the highest level and instead drag the game down. The debate exploded online. Some defended Mabrey, others sided with Bird. But one thing was clear, Bird wasn't being harsh. He was showing his love for the game. He's seen it all, and he knows true greatness isn't about cheap shots. It's about honor and respect for basketball. Now everyone's wondering, was this the wake-up call women's basketball needed, or did the legend go too far? Either way, Bird's words carried serious weight. For many, this moment could define Mabrey's legacy. When Bird speaks, people listen. The buzz around his comments kept growing. Social media lit up, analysts chimed in, and fans debated every word he said about Caitlin Clark. It's rare to see a legend like Bird step into a current player's story, but when he does, the entire sports world pays attention. And this time, he dropped some powerful truth bombs that left everyone stunned. What Bird really admires about Clark isn't just her talent. It's her rare, almost unteachable qualities that make her special. He said he sees his own fire and vision in her. He called her court awareness otherworldly, and her shooting under pressure almost unreal. Plus, she makes everyone around her better, which Bird believes is what separates true basketball geniuses from the rest. But it wasn't all praise. He also had some serious concerns. Larry Bird just made headlines again, and this time, it wasn't for something he did on the court. He spoke out about all the physical targeting and cheap shots Caitlin Clark has been facing at just 22 years old, calling it the weakest kind of competition. To him, that's not tough defense. It's a troubling trend where players use aggression as a shortcut because they can't keep up with skill. He even called out Marina Mabrey's physical play, saying it represents a bigger issue in the women's game. Players are trying to out-hit Clark instead of outwork her. Bird called that desperation. His words carried real weight because he's been there himself. Back in his playing days, Bird dealt with plenty of elbows, shoves, and trash talk. But he pointed out that Clark faces far more pressure than he ever did. Not only from opponents, but also from the massive spotlight that follows her everywhere. Still, she stays cool, focused, and composed. Bird said she's dealing with more at 22 than some players face in their entire careers, and that's what makes her special. He didn't stop there. Bird directly challenged the WNBA, questioning whether the league is doing enough to protect its brightest star. He warned that allowing targeting sends a dangerous message, that rough play can somehow replace hard work, and that, he said, hurts not only stars like Clark, but also the young kids watching at home. Kids should be learning skill and heart, he warned, not how to take cheap shots. The most powerful part of Bird's message came when he looked to the future. He believes every shove and hard foul is actually shaping Clark into something unstoppable. Pressure reveals character, he said. And Caitlin's character, he believes, is extraordinary. He even compared her to himself, but admitted what she's facing is on another level. She's not just the face of a team, Bird said. She's the face of a movement. While others might try to knock her down, Bird believes she's building something much bigger. Every time she's fouled hard, she responds with poise, precision, and another incredible shot. Ultimately, Bird's message was both a warning and a celebration. If the league doesn't protect players like Clark, it risks losing the very spirit that's driving women's basketball to new heights. But if they do, he said, Clark could change the game forever, just like he once did. For Bird, this wasn't about nostalgia. It was about purpose. He finally broke his silence after years away from the spotlight. And when he did, the entire basketball world stopped to listen. This isn't a man who talks just to talk. Bird built his legacy on toughness, intelligence, and precision. So when he weighed in on the Marina Mabrey, Caitlin Clark incident, it wasn't just commentary. It was a verdict from one of the purest competitors the sport has ever seen. Bird has truly seen it all. In the 1980s, he battled legends like Bill Laimbeer and Dennis Rodman, players who used physicality as a weapon. But even in that brutal era, Bird followed a code: play hard but play fair. He never backed down from contact, yet he always knew where the line was. That's why his reaction to MRE should have shocked so many fans and analysts. When Bird saw Mabrey push Clark from behind, right after Clark had already been poked in the eye, his response was sharp and direct. He called it the most cowardly act I've seen in decades. Coming from Bird, a man who survived the NBA's roughest era, that wasn't just criticism, it was outright condemnation. For him, basketball was never about cheap shots. It was about skill, resilience, and mental toughness. He beat opponents with intelligence, not just strength. So when he saw what happened to Clark, he wasn't just criticizing one moment. He was defending the very soul of the game. And perhaps the most powerful part was his timing. Bird didn't jump into the social media frenzy. He waited. He watched the debates unfold, how some defended the play while others dismissed it. Then, calmly and clearly, he drew a line between real competition and empty aggression. And when Larry Bird draws a line, it stays drawn. It's incredibly rare to see such a private legend step back into the spotlight to comment on today's game. But when he does, the entire basketball world listens. Larry Bird's decision to speak out wasn't just random. It hinted at something deeper. Maybe he's worried about where modern basketball is heading. Has the fire of competition turned into something else entirely? Has player respect faded because everyone's chasing viral moments instead of real greatness? Bird's words reignited those questions. And whether you agree with him or not, one thing's for sure: when Larry Bird speaks, the basketball world listens. His unexpected voice turned whispers into headlines and sparked a debate no one saw coming. Seriously, who thought Larry Bird would step into this storm? The talk around Caitlin Clark and Marina Mabrey was already dominating social media. But when Bird finally spoke, he didn't just defend Clark. He completely shifted the conversation. His words carried that unmistakable authority only a legend can have. A man who's lived through every bruise, battle, and challenge the game could throw. For Bird, this wasn't about one player or one moment. It was about basketball's entire spirit. The respect, discipline, and integrity the game was built on. When he looked at Caitlin Clark, he didn't just see a great scorer. He saw a generational force. Someone forged in the fire of criticism and expectation. By the time Bird's comments hit, the internet was already exploding. Clips of Clark's clashes were going viral. Talk shows were debating fouls and fans were split. But Bird didn't add to the noise. He cut right through it. He reminded everyone that true greatness isn't about how hard you hit someone, but how you rise after being hit hard. He even looked back on his early NBA days, when veterans tested him every night just to see if he'd break. The tougher it got, the smarter he played. He learned to win with grit and respect, not anger. And that same resilience, he said, is what makes Caitlin Clark so special. Every shove, every foul, every attempt to get under her skin only makes her stronger. But Bird didn't stop there. His sharpest warning was about what he called a dangerous trend. Players using cheap shots just to get attention. He didn't name anyone, but everyone knew he was referring to the heated exchanges with Marina Mabrey. Bird warned that if the league tolerates that kind of behavior, it sends a wrong message, especially to young fans. Kids are watching, he emphasized. They should be learning teamwork, respect, and skill, not how to get away with dirty play. That struck a nerve. Some people thought Bird wanted the WNBA to protect its stars like the NBA used to. Others said he was being too soft. But Bird's message couldn't have been clearer. Competition is one thing, cruelty is another. And the timing of his comments was crucial. By 2025, Caitlin Clark wasn't just a rookie anymore. She was the face of a movement. She was breaking records, pulling record viewership, and representing how far women's basketball had come. But with that fame came intense scrutiny and resentment. Bird understood that pressure better than anyone. He'd lived it, and he turned it into fuel. That's why his defense of Clark hit so deeply. He wasn't just supporting a young star. He was protecting the essence of basketball itself. Grit, grace, and growth. Bird also hinted that the WNBA now faces a massive choice: to protect its brightest talents or risk losing what makes the game beautiful. In his eyes, players like Clark are the league's future. They inspire fans, raise standards, and attract global attention. But that growth, he warned, will only last if fairness and respect remain at the heart of the sport. Ultimately, Bird's comment became much more than a viral interview. They were a statement about his legacy, about Clark's legacy, and about basketball's legacy. For many fans, it reminded them why they fell in love with the game in the first place. Not just for the highlights, but for the courage, character, and heart behind them. And maybe that's why his words hit so hard. Bird didn't speak for attention or nostalgia. He spoke because he saw something familiar in Caitlin Clark. That relentless fire that refuses to die, no matter how tough the storm gets. To him, that's not just talent. That's greatness. The kind that keeps the soul of basketball alive. In the end, Bird's message was both a tribute and a warning. His powerful words didn't just echo. They struck a nerve, one still buzzing through locker rooms, newsrooms, and among fans everywhere. When he spoke out about the WNBA's rising tensions, he wasn't trying to start drama. He was sounding an alarm. He felt that something sacred about basketball was at stake. His message wasn't about one foul or one rivalry. It was about what the league risks becoming if it forgets what made the game beautiful in the first place. It all started after that heated game where Caitlin Clark, the league's biggest new star, became the target of repeated physical play, especially from Marina Mabrey. Bird didn't hold back. He called it a troubling trend and warned that if players keep using rough tactics to gain attention or disrupt superstars without consequences, the league could be heading down a dangerous road. To Bird, that wasn't just unsportsmanlike. It was a threat to the very future of women's basketball. His defense of Clark went beyond admiration. He spoke as someone who lived through his own rookie battles back in 1979, when veterans tried to shake his confidence night after night. Every hit made me sharper, he recalled. And that's exactly how he sees Clark. She's tough, unshaken, and rises higher every time she's knocked down. Bird's comments hit even harder because of the WNBA's timing. In 2024, the league had record-breaking attendance and viewership. Much of it thanks to Clark. But that spotlight also brought rivalries, resentment, and frustration from players who felt overshadowed by her fame.